with this lovely lady who was essentially coming to me saying, hey, my reels aren't working. What is going on? And my immediate question to her was, what are your customers saying? Like, what do your customers need to hear? And she was immediately stumped back and she's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, then who are your customers? And she gave me a bit of a rundown of who her customers were, specifically the demographics of women in, 45 to 55. And I had to kind of stop her there and go like, no. But like, when it comes to your reels not working, it's clear like you're trying different messages, you're seeing what's resonating. And, we've had chats like this in the past. But I wanted to emphasize with her about the people that she's aiming for. Do they actually watch the reels on Instagram? Or are they more like someone who wants to engage with the story element of Instagram? Or are they someone who likes to just scroll on their feed? You need to strategize yourself and the content that you produce to be where they are looking. Where your customers, the type of people that are wanting to engage with your services, who have the funds at the end of the day to be able to engage in your services and also have the time to engage in your services. A lot of the people that I work with currently are service producers. I do have a couple of product producers there. What I mean by that is that most of the work that they do requires time on both sides of the equation to be able to achieve the result that the client needs. Now, of course, there's obviously a little bit more work and expertise coming from the person providing the service compared to the person actually engaging the service, but I digress. When it comes to being able to be seen by these people, to have a clear idea of who you're actually talking to and why you're reaching out to them is more important than, hey, you're doing Instagram reels because you find them fun. Awesome. You find a method of marketing that is fun for you, that you can do consistently, that you engage with. Awesome. That's great. Let's try and line it up, however, with the people that you want to get on board. And that's where the content strategy over a content format comes in. Because when you're working with, maybe you're marketing yourself in your free time, that doesn't exist for small business owners, but go with the analogy here. In your free time, your hobby is essentially marketing your business. And that's where a lot of personal branding and a lot of small business owners find that their hobby that they're doing outside of their business is marketing their business, and they have fun exploring that opportunity that they have. Now, of course, you can delegate this to maybe other members of your team, interns if you have any, or be able to delegate it to another company entirely. Now, of course, you need to have funds and you need to have the time and investment that would take to have them do your marketing for you. But I digress. But understanding why your audience wants to consume the information from you, but also have an idea of where they actually are looking for your information is more important than how you're wanting to approach it. So, for example, being able to define the idea first and selecting appropriate format is then the next point of call. A lot of people that I speak with, and especially the woman that I spoke to last week, very much had the format in mind first, rather than the actual message that was being touted. Now, of course, as most of us do, we have multiple different messages, multiple different things we want to say, and multiple different things that we want to bring people on board with. Well, that is fine. That's perfectly understandable. Not every single piece of content that you put out there is going to have the same message. That is okay. For your own sanity, I'm going to ask to be able to put those type of messages and information into at least 3 buckets, maybe 4 to 5 if you're lucky, to be able to make the process of figuring out what type of message you want to deliver your audience easier. Again, not necessarily the message itself, but the type of message into these, they're called silos, but silos has a very bad connotation, especially in the marketing industry, because they're cut off from everything else. What I like to think of is put them into piles. They are freestanding piles of ideas and messages and information that are right next to each other, so they do feed into each other and they can feed into each other, but you're able to streamline your thinking. So for example, a good example of this, especially for the client that I was working with. Sorry, not client I was working with, I digress. The person I was speaking with last week was being able to think of, okay, so what is the message that we want to speak to? We want to speak to about how spending time on your mental health is important, and actively investing time on other modalities, not just, hey, I just want to get a tarot reading, for example. Because a lot of people, for example, that reach out to her for tarot readings find themselves needing more than just the tarot reading to not exactly feel better, but just to have any sort of sense of direction, because that's the starting point. So from that information that we've been able to digress, okay, we're able to break this down into a message of taking this journey is going to be a journey. How do we break this down for them? All right, so that's the message. That's a bit of a wide message, but this was the message I was using with this lady at the time. And what we've been able to, again, we talked it out, we had discussions, and we were able to figure out, well, maybe a Facebook, or maybe an Instagram reel maybe wasn't the best way of being able to communicate that message. Okay, so where would they go about finding more information about this? Okay, they are probably more likely to stumble upon it on Pinterest. Not necessarily that they're going to engage with you from there, but that is, an idea. We discussed about maybe still using the reel method of like using a vertical video that showed both the journey, but also her face and the words that she uses. She has a very calming, voice, which of course brings more people on to that journey of actually focusing on themselves. So she found that useful to be able to think about, okay, now maybe you're actually doing something useful for yourself, like for example, creating a reel every week. That is useful. Maybe it's not resonating with your audience, maybe just because they're not there. Maybe they're on Facebook. Okay. When it comes to posting stuff on social media, as those who have maybe listened to my podcast before, I usually put it down fairly low on the priority list because social media is rented land. It is not your property. The Facebook, Metas, and LinkedIn's, YouTube's of the world will change their algorithms in an instant, and you can be left high and dry. So when it comes to that amount of work, especially if you're putting a lot of work into one piece of content, sharing it on all platforms is okay. Yes, for example, it may not exactly fit, say, the LinkedIn aesthetic, but you're still showing up. You're still there, and it is a good start before you carry on with the rest of your marketing journey. And especially if something that you have worked hard on that really resonates with people and has a really good message, do not be afraid to post that video again in 60 days. Maybe even a little shorter depending on the focus of the actual message. Do not be afraid to reuse that content again. Maybe even move some of the visuals around, maybe have the same voiceover, but have some of the visuals move around. Because again, the content itself is just in that awareness part of the work that you are doing. You're still bringing people into your sphere of influence. You haven't got them to a lead yet, and not necessarily the work that you do on social media is going to generate a lead straight away. Of course, it's going to maybe over time, but you need to be consistent with that messaging first. And that's why, again, we're going back to having the content strategy over actually how you perform the message being more important. And questions that I like to ask my potential clients when I work with them regarding this type of mentality is, what do you like doing and what do they want to see? What can you, the Venn diagram in your head, what do you like to do when it comes to marketing your business, maybe recording a video, and what do they want to see? What can those areas overlap? And that's where the content strategy comes in regards to your focus. For example, if there's there's a client that I work with who loves carousels. So carousels are a line of images that are pretty much on all platforms now that distill information across multiple slides, maximum of 10. And some of these have text, some of these have just images, some of these have a combination of both. And she loves creating them because She I think, worked with someone and created like 15 different templates. And she just finds it so easy to be able to break down her messages and her thoughts into these like individual slides. And she gets a lot of reach from them. Cool, awesome. Again, we're in the middle of that Venn diagram where what she likes to do and what people want to see are in the same sphere. And that's where she puts her energy. And she continually gets, things going viral because she actually spends her time on things that she enjoys doing. Now, of course, that is a win-win. That is not always going to happen, especially with the target market that you're working with. The target market that you're working with may be very different to you. And that is okay. You are there to help them grow. You are there to help them succeed. You are not necessarily going to be the exact same person, nor should you be. But I digress. I'm saying that a lot today, so my apologies if that is grating on you a little bit. Another question that I have is there something that you don't hate doing? When it comes to marketing and the activities that you do, is there something that you don't hate doing? Can you work with your customers and with your clients to be able to do something like that if you don't hate doing it? So say, for example, I have a couple of clients at the moment who do not like getting on video. And that might seem rather strange from Zoe, the video confidence coach. You don't need to necessarily get on video if you are uncomfortable with it. But what they don't hate doing is filming their hands as they make their art. They don't hate doing that. So maybe you'd be able to utilize that with a voiceover or maybe reading some poetry. Or again, what type of atmosphere do you want to bring people into? Again, that resonates with your target audience. Again, we're thinking of the strategy more than the actual output of what we actually do. Again, strategy over format. And as I mentioned before, earlier in this podcast, if there is something that you hate doing, that you cannot stand doing, can you delegate it? Can you delegate it to one of your staff if you have any? Can you hire someone for maybe 1 to 2 days a week to do that type of work for you if that's how much effort it takes? Or maybe, for example, I work even with a couple of clients who have me do their social media because they dislike it so much. And honestly, with the amount of work that we've done over the years, I just, put it all together for them relatively easily. And they're happy. And their clients are happy. And if your audience cares about, the litmus test that I like to use, especially for my clients, is if your audience cares about it, it should be important to you. Do your audience care that you are on LinkedIn? If your business is not aimed at people who are in corporate, who are in those type of spheres, maybe they don't really care. And then that shouldn't really be important to you. Do they care about, for example, how they look when they post stuff on Instagram? Well, then you should care about that too. What does your audience care about? Then you need to care about it. And the importance of understanding your audience is something that takes time and something that takes actively thinking about how they want to receive their information and how you want to go about giving them that information. Because the information that they seek may not be the information that they want to hear, especially if you are being the solution to a problem that they have. But they still want to find a solution regardless. You may not be the right fit for them in that moment. But if you constantly are in the feeds, if you are appearing in front of them on a regular basis, again, those multiple touch points, when it comes to marketing, you want people to be able to recognize your brand and see you out and about, not just digitally, but face to face if that is an option for you and your business. Because you have to remind people that you exist. And for a lot of people, especially in this current cost of living crisis, to be able to have a problem rise above all the other problems to the point where they need to fix it and they need to find your solution, you need to be there. And if that means working on your website, if that means providing some context to what you do. So when people have questions, you're not there on the phone, juggling, trying to answer people's questions, when you can put that effort and time into a FAQ list on your website, to maybe do a series of videos, maybe even just really basic videos on your YouTube channel, which then can stay on your website to help answer people's questions. But then you can use that content in blogs. There is so much that you can do with such little bit of effort, but to be able to have the thinking or the wherewithal to think about, okay, what does my audience need? What are the answers that they're seeking? And what is the way that I can do that is easiest for me? And say, for example, if something isn't easy for you, but you're interested to learn, there will always be tutorials for pretty much everything. And if you don't, contact the professionals who do know that space. Like, I'm currently in discussions with someone right now who hates talking, but they want to start a podcast because their clientele love podcasts, like rave about them. So we're trying to work a little bit on that little bit of the Venn diagram, that bit in the middle of, okay, you don't like talking, might make podcasting hard. Let's delve into that a little bit. Of course, I'm not a psychologist, but to be able to delve into that a little bit and make sure that the reason that you're doing it, and as I mentioned specifically to this potential client, is if you hate something, you are not going to do it. And even if it's for your business, even if it is going to light up the faces of the people that you work for, and if it's going to make you so much money, if you hate doing it, you are not going to be consistent with it. You are not going to do it, and you are not going to continue to do it, and you are not going to make it a habit in your business. Which is why marketing always falls by the wayside for a lot of business owners, because of course there is so much that you need to think about, especially when running your business. But also, if you can make something fun for yourself, and if something is not fun, then can you do something that you don't hate? And if it's something that you don't hate, so it's not fun, and you absolutely hate it to the point where you can't even do it just for 10 minutes a week, then hire someone else to do it. It's not always going to be your forethought, and it's not always going to be your best thing. Maybe like I said, the content strategy may not always fit the content format that you have in mind. And that's okay, because you are learning, you are growing, and you're able to use that knowledge in other aspects of your business. You can always use a piece of content more than once. You can always use a content strategy more than once. You can always use a message more than once. Because when marketing yourself and your brand, be it your personal brand or your small business, it's going to take time. But I believe in you. And as you learn and you find out more about your clientele, but also about yourself, you're able to make these decisions. You're able to see, for example, an idea of, hey, I can see that this maybe competitor is doing this series of podcasts, but they're not getting a lot of numbers. Could you do it better? Maybe. Or maybe the format doesn't exactly work with you and your sensibilities, but doing a weekly live stream on those topics will. Because you can just stream it, you can just get it done, get it out there, and then hand over your, the follow-up and I forgot what the word is. Being able to transcribe it and turn it into a blog and all of those other following activities, you can hand it over to someone else. That works. You're able to appear for your customer. You're able to give them the information that they need in a format that works for you because you don't hate it and you may even like it, to the point where then they can use that, they being other people that you work for, or maybe you 24 hours later, are able to use that content to be more efficient for your overall strategy of your marketing. Hopefully I haven't prattled on too long for you, and I apologize if I have maybe gone a little bit too deep on this particular topic. This is something that has been cooking around in my head for the past week, that I've had multiple people speaking to. And do not worry if the way that you think or the way that you initially react to something is, oh, I should do a post about this. And you initially have a specific thing in mind. That is okay. That is your experience. but be able to think about, okay, how is this going to work for my customer? What exactly are they thinking, and how are they going to see this because they're looking for it? Hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.